Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Adventure Paradox podcast. We have an awesome guest here with us today. I am so excited to have a fellow New Mexican here. Did you bring the
Woo!
green chili, Rebecca? Come on, I'm hungry.
Heck yeah.
That's my girl. Oh, someday I hope we get to do a retreat together I want to say
Yes.
down under, down in New Mexico with the green chili, where we really understand water conservation and the land of enchantment and so many other magical things that you are a huge part of because you live in Albuquerque. Oh, thank you for zooming
Mm.
in with us, Rebecca. I am so excited to see you. I'm going to give a formal introduction in just a moment. But first of all, how is New Mexico and how are you, more importantly?
I am just so lit up to be here. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I am feeling great. New Mexico is great. The sun is shining. And I love that you brought up green chili. I used to have this little thing. I traded big city for green chili. And then after
That
a
is my
while, it kind
girl.
of died out. But it really is just, it's the kick. It's the kick,
Mm.
that green chili sauce, that green roasting chili. I love being somewhere with with food that is just indigenously from this
Mm,
area.
mm.
Different from my life in suburban New Jersey, girl.
Oh, yep, totally, totally. We all have a from
Mm.
there, but where do we really live and thrive and come alive? Like that's the real question. And
In
I
our
just
heart.
found a sticker from The Range, which is a really popular restaurant, and it said Team Christmas with red chili and green chili. And if you don't know,
Oh,
we're going to take you into a little local insight here, which is that when you're in New Mexico, if you want people to think you're a local, then you order it Christmas. And Christmas means you want the red chili and the green chili.
exactly. And by the way, no disrespect to Jersey. I'm always going to be a Jersey girl.
For
So just
sure, for
anyone from
sure.
Jersey, I got you. They're both
For sure.
amazing. There's so many amazing places to live. And
Totally,
they're so
totally.
uniquely different.
Amen. Amen. And I'm just teasing, and I want everyone in our audience to feel welcome because I myself was born in California and then grew up in New Mexico and learned Texas and
Christmas.
California, New Mexico as a whole was pretty anti, and I had to really find myself and be okay with
Mm.
myself with that shadow of the where are you from versus where do you live and thrive and choose to be, and how do you show up in that, right? Anyway, let's do a formal introduction.
Interesting.
Yes, let's
Yeah.
do a formal intro. Are you ready?
Yes. I'm
Who
ready. I'm lit up like Christmas, red and green.
So appropriate. Oh my gosh, I love
Yes.
it. Okay, so Ms. Rebecca Schlosser is a trauma-informed breathwork facilitator, yoga teacher, and free-spirited midlifer who left the traditional 9 to 5 to heal and reinvent her life from the inside out. She guides women to meet their shadows with compassion. She helps them shed the masks created by shame and step into the identities that they're finally ready to claim. Her story weaves together late in life empowerment, non-motherhood healing, embodied self-acceptance, and the surprising gifts in our quote, too muchness. Can we start there? Because I feel like it kind of
Yeah.
like dovetails with where we were just a moment ago. Like
Yeah.
the too muchness, this idea of like, you're okay if you're this, but you're not okay if you're that. Can we start right there with the too muchness? I'd love to start.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we are washing that out of our consciousness right now as a society. And I know we all see different things on our Instagram feed, right? My algorithm's going to be a little bit different, but I know that I see a lot of these amazing women talking about the midlife journey, talking about things that were never talked about 20 years ago, like perimenopause, and talking about getting over this concept that we're too much.
Mm,
I think it was Kathy Heller who we both met through, who first got me acquainted with the concept of doing something messy, but
mm,
allowing ourselves to be messy, allowing ourselves to let our hair down. When I lived on the East Coast, I felt like I always had to keep my hair straight instead of letting it flow. And now it's like, okay, occasionally I'll get it straightened in the salon, but just letting our voice come out, letting our our personality and our essence come out. And it does not have to be, tucked into this tight little package. And I see and hear that all the time. But for those of you that don't see and hear that all the time, I think it's valuable to bring up our too muchness, or what society calls our too muchness, is what makes us amazing.
Mm.
So it makes us, especially as we age, we're reframing what it means to be in your 40s or 50s or older. So yeah, let's just let the inner wild one be,
Oh my
be and
God,
live.
give this girl the mic. Like, can you say it again from the rooftops? Like, so good. So good. And yeah, I think it's so interesting, like how we package and we try to make it small and tight and perfect and like all of this. And we forget that like life was never designed to be like that, you know?
No, yep, yep. And it is going to be the biggest roadblock in the things that we want to become better at, which has been coming up a lot for me. The things that we want to improve, the things that we want to shift. There might be some things that we're insecure about, and some things we say, you know what? I'm never going to be the best at that, and that's okay. But there's so many other things that I think we would do more efficiently, better, and with so much joy when we get out of that idea of it having to look a certain way and feel a
Mm,
certain way. For me, that was cooking. For me, most recently, that's home decorating. I had a big insecurity around that. And when we start to think of this vision in our head of how something is supposed to be, it is like, it just stops us. Even
mm,
like trying to write a book. Oh my gosh, I have this idea of how the book is supposed to be or how the document is supposed to be. And it keeps our real essence out of the project.
mm. Can you say more? And I specifically want to hear more about the real essence. And when you find yourself pushing it out of the project, how does it enter? And then also, how do you lead with that?
So good. All right. So let's take cooking for example. I basically learned how to cook during the pandemic.
Mm,
Before that, so I got into a relationship, a long relationship, probably my first long relationship, about 5 months before the shutdown. And so we started living together during the shutdown, probably a little bit prematurely than we would have otherwise. And we're like, we're doing this. We're in this together. You told me you could cook, right? And I'm like, oh wait, maybe I made myself look good on those first few dates, or I'm like, wait a second, now it's really gonna come out. Oh my gosh, I know how to like make this thing and that thing, but I had to have this big story that I was a good cook. I couldn't face the truth. Hey, you know something? I've led a wild life and I've been single and I don't really do a lot of cooking. So that was really interesting because in the beginning of that, for me, it was all about, oh, I better show up. How do I perform? How is this perfect? And it was a pressure that I imposed on myself. And when we start to get into that Shark Tank, that pressure cooker, all of a sudden we're focusing on this ideal of how something is supposed to taste. We're focusing outward on what somebody else is doing. A friend says, "Oh, I made a this, or I made a pot roast, or I made a noodle thing," and we're focusing on that instead of cooking is a great example because we all eat. Instead of asking ourselves, what would I love? What would I
mm,
love? What do I want to eat? Okay, so maybe I didn't do a lot of cooking, but what did I order when I would go to restaurants? What really lights me up, and it's not about maintaining a certain image. It's about making something that's going to make me feel good. So you could apply
mm,
that to any category of life, but food is such a good example because yeah, we all got to eat. Some people are more into food being a foodie than not, but usually that necessity drives, and if we are worried about it being perfect and if we're not attuned to what we like, to what
mm,
really is going to make us feel good, what tastes good to us, it's not going to be joyful. It's literally not going to feed us.
right.
Um, and so I think when I started to really just say, okay, we're just going to be honest. I sucked at this up until now, or up until 5 months ago, or up until a year ago. And we're learning and we're doing this. And I want to eat and I want it to taste good. And I stopped thinking about the image of being this girl who could cook really well. And I started to think about what's going to make me happy at 6, 7 o'clock tonight. What's
Mm,
going to make me happy even as I'm preparing it, because there's things that we might get from a restaurant that we're never going to try to prepare. I don't make sushi, but what's going to feel good making and what's going to feel good eating. And that really started to, when I stopped thinking about the image of being a good cook and the expectation that I thought others might have on me, and I stopped comparing myself to other people, I started to really enjoy cooking. Naturally, I would upgrade my kitchen with the things that would make it flow. Naturally, I would add recipes that would nourish me that I really liked. And it actually became something joyful. Whereas previously it was like, how do I make this really good? How do I be the best? We don't have to be the
Mm.
best. We just have to be enjoying something.
So good. When does your cooking show start? I want in. Really though.
That sounds like fun, actually. I'm always like admiring those people that can like do the videos of themselves cooking something, and then my Instagram video savvy.
I,
Speaking of
I
being perfectionist at something, but
I see it coming. Cooking with Schlosser. I see it coming. You know, it's reminding me in the pandemic, there was a day I posted, I think we'd been home for, I don't know, between 14 and 21 days. And I was like, and it was a live Facebook feed thing I was doing. I was like, and this is the day that we lost our minds when we like we tried to make cookie cutter pancakes. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Like you can make a pancake and then do a cookie cutter in it. That usually doesn't really work either because they're fluffy and they're da, da, da. So we tried to make them inside the cookie cutters. It doesn't work. Just so you know, so you don't try this, it does not work. And it especially does not work when you're trying to do it with a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old and your husband working from home. Like it just doesn't work.
it
But I
doesn't
love
work.
like this idea of really just being honest and fully stepping into, oh, you know what? I had this facade of like, yeah, I'm a great cook while we're dating. You know, I have another girlfriend who said the same thing. And she was like, yeah, I had this one thing I could make. And so I would make it on dates. I'd make this like one fancy meal every date. And it would be the first date. And then they'd like, no, I could cook, but I didn't like to. I'd rather have it be taken out, you know? But it was the only thing she knew how to cook, you know?
That's hilarious.
Isn't that great? And you're telling a similar story. So, like, where are we doing this? Where we're like,
It's like this is my one really foxy dress, and I'm going to make it look like I'm going to see you and I'm going to wear this dress, and you're going to think I have a whole closet of dresses. That's hilarious. And I just want to point out for I remember because I read your amazing book. I know that for you, yeah, the pandemic was just like this bottleneck, with two really, really, really young kids. And I just remember that. I can't imagine trying to like, okay, let's all make pancakes, or some people were making sourdough bread. Good example. That was not me. I was not. I think somebody had given me some starter, and it ended up growing mold in the fridge, and it just never happened.
yeah, yeah.
But I do want to share one thing from the pandemic. I had gotten this book called Forks Over Knives. I don't know if you're. I was taking a yoga training at the time. It was the pandemic, so the training was supposed to be in person, but it was a virtual training. But we're talking about, yogi diet stuff, and everyone's talking about how you have to be healthy or COVID will kill you. So I got into this little thing of, okay, well, maybe I'll get a vegan cookbook. And it was really hit or miss, but I remember I tried to make this vegan mac and cheese. I must have done something wrong. The sauce, it was a mixture of like nutritional yeast, which we have to come up with a new name for nutritional yeast
Yeah.
because uh, no man that I've ever talked to has like not gotten horrified. We can eat it. It needs a new name. It needs a new name. Somebody out there think of a new name. But it was with that. It was with some, um, what else? A bunch of other things that I guess are typical for a fake cheese. That thing came out of the oven. I call it the night that feet came out of the oven. It smelled so awful. We had to put it outside, girl. We had to put it outside because it stunk up the house. Winter 2020. So
The night feet came out of
out
the
of the
oven.
oven.
Oh my gosh, I'm dying. You are cracking me up. Oh my God. And it's because we've all been there where it's like, and that didn't go right, but we will
Yep.
never forget this story.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh my gosh, so funny. Okay, I'm dying. I'm dying. I love your stories and just your wisdom about how you see your own
Yeah.
experience in it, right? And the funny, the raw, like also cueing when is your stand-up comedy show coming? Because like you're rolling in it.
Mm.
I love it. But I'd love to hear about like what you're stepping into now, because you've done all this work and
Yes.
it's so interesting because here we are 5 years ago. The pandemic was 5 years ago. And they say wherever you are now, those seeds were planted 5 years ago. So
Mm.
where are we going to be 5 years from now? Like, where are you going with all this juicy wisdom and fun and things you've been learning? And it sounds like there are certain things that you've put on pause, that you have pivots going on, like rebrands. I know there's some really juicy, cool stuff coming for 2026. Like, where
Oh
are you
yeah.
going? What's happening? Where are you going with all this?
Oh yeah. Oh right. We're getting into it. So about 2.5 years ago, I left a 9 to 5. I had a virtual job that I actually did all through the pandemic, and then after. And about a year ago, a little bit less than a year ago, I became certified as a breathwork facilitator. So the last few years have kind of just been this real internal journey of doing this somatic work. And somatic, I know a lot of your listeners might be familiar with the term. I think people sometimes get annoyed with the term. It's one of these buzzwords. It's like nervous system. It's like, yeah, I know that, but I don't know that. It just means the body. It's body based healing, where we're getting into the body and we're doing this work so that we can have these beautiful insights, because the body is really where we end up doing the work. It's finding that safety inside. So, breath
Mhm.
work had found me at various points in life. I had done the, I'd been on a journey, a mind body journey. I had a yoga teaching certificate. I actually had two of them, have two of them. It is something that I work with. And I mean, I love yoga. Who doesn't love yoga? And I got this breath work came back into my life. I'd say about the end of 2023, beginning of 2024. And it was interesting because looking back, I didn't realize it at the time. Like you brought up, we go through these 5 year cycles and we might not realize how far we've come until we look back. But
Mm.
looking back, breathwork was really very helpful to me, kind of like adjusting to life outside of the 9 to 5 and also to adjusting to life without my dad because I lost him in 2023. And I
Mm.
had actually first discovered breath work because he got into it. He got into rebirthing in the early 90s. It was a thing.
Cool.
Rebirthing was one of the big popular forms of breath work. And so I got into these breath journeys of laying down and doing that continuous meditative breathing, and sometimes just going to places that we don't normally go to when we're in our heads, really getting that visceral feeling in our body. And I loved it. And when there was an opportunity to study with one of the best breathwork mentors, and you also know who Sam Skelly is because she hosted Women in Wealth. When I discovered her beautiful energy and found out that she runs this amazing program called Pause Breathwork, I'm like, I want to get my certificate. That's the next stop on the journey. That's the way that I am dialing into myself. That's the way that I can support other people in dialing into themselves. So it really has kind of been an inward journey. And where I'm going now, I feel like ever since that Women in Wealth event, this was this amazing women's event, like no other women's event that I had ever been to. And I'm not really a conference person. So when I went and I'm like, no, this is not conferencey at all. This is alive.
Mm.
Something really clicked ever since that event. And I've just been like, my breath work, this medicine is so good. And I kind of expanded on some of the practices that I was doing. And so I'm working on a little ebook. It's a free little thing, a PDF document, a glorified PDF. It's going to be some kind of a short little ebook. And that is going to be available in the show notes for your guests. That is pretty much almost complete. So I am writing and sharing about some of the practices that have really been helping me and feeding me and bringing my own magic to the forefront and bringing things into place. Things have a way of clicking into place on the outside when we're
Mm,
doing this work. So,
mm,
one thing that has just been such a through line is being willing to meet the things. Really being willing when there's an insecurity, when there's a contraction, when there's something that comes up, when there's something that like it just seems like a big, ugly pimple of a truth in our life. And we just, it's like, how do I stop thinking about this? Or how does this stop happening? Or how do I change this? Just by meeting it, by meeting that little part of ourselves that is stuck on it,
mm.
can be so powerful and so transformational in moving it. So I'll give an example. I have so many examples. But one of the things about me is I do have a little bit of a wild past. I'm boisterous, I'm loud, I'm snarky, and I've kind of taken the untraditional route in life, finding partnership later in life, settling down later in life. I don't have children. I think it's probably because of my timeline, but I've had a lot of insecurity about being kind of like a wild woman in my 20s and early 30s. And I'm actually embracing that little wild person inside of me
Mm.
more and more and more, day by day, moment by moment, breath by breath, because there is always gifts. There is always a gift in every little part of us that we want to call a shadow. And our
Mm.
wildness is awesome. Our wildness is amazing. There's really no one way to live our lives.
Totally.
So by embracing that, and every time the insecurity comes up, oh, I don't have a child. They have children. I don't. That is a big example for women of what could be an insecurity. Every time it comes up, I really just try to meet it. I don't try to
Mm.
push it aside. I don't try to numb it. I just try to meet it with my breath, with my awareness, with emotional release.
Mm. Oh my God,
It,
so good. So good. I gotta reflect these words back to you because they're so juicy. You're such a wordsmith. I'm so excited you have an ebook coming. Of course you do. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so you said being willing to meet the big ugly pimple of truth. I hope
Yep.
you have a whole chapter on that because that's like such good writing right there.
Yep. Thank
And
you.
then
Thank you.
like
Love
the
you.
other the other thing I hear is like this idea of the comparison trap where it's like,
Hmm.
you just meet it like, ooh, I'm comparing. Like, oh, huh, this is bringing up a feeling in me, right? Like, where am I feeling it in my body? And I'd love to hear you
Yes.
say more because I'm familiar with Sam Skelly and Pause Breathwork, the incredible CEO of Pause Breathwork, who was also the one who was spearleading this Beautiful Women in Wealth event where I got to see you again last month, even though we have met and hung out and lived in a house together at a podcasting retreat years ago. And I did breath work with you then. And it was before you were even certified through Sam, when you were, quote, just a yoga instructor. And you are a really powerful teacher. Like you are
Thank you.
so good at what you do and bringing people into
Thank
their
you.
bodies and like into their space and into the
Thank you.
practice. And like, I want to just really make sure you
Thank
hear
you.
that and that our audience hears that because you're in the presence of a master here. Like this gal has got it going on. Okay. Like I just want you to hear that. But I would love for you to take us through a little bit more of like a daily practice and like when you're in this moment of like,
Hmm.
I'm in a comparison. Like I found myself in a trap. I see a big ugly pimple of truth, and like do you squeeze it? Like do you poke it? Like do you
Mm.
breathe with it and say I'm going to give it another day or I'm going to put a little cream on it or like what do you do? Like will you take us through one?
Sure. I would be absolutely happy to do it. So, yeah, breath work, taking a moment to stop, pause, and take a breath when we have those moments of awareness that something is big is so huge because we are not just like we are not our feelings. You might be angry in one moment. Like we are not that anger. We are the human being that has that anger. There's a little
Mm,
part inside of us that is getting activated because of that thing outside that we're angry about. Same with our insecurities. My identity is so much bigger than I am that woman who did all the crazy irresponsible things, who passed up an opportunity to be a mom, who didn't contribute a child. That narrative can come up, and I have to stop and realize that is a feeling that a little part of me inside is having.
Mm.
Maybe we can call that little part my inner critic. So in breath work, I won't go too deep here, but in breath work, we do learn about internal family systems or inner parts. You start to understand that these impulses that come up, that's not us. That is a part of us that was patterned at some point, that developed at some point. So a really powerful thing to do when something comes up like this is really to take a pause. I laugh every time I say pause because pause breath work. So, how many
Yep.
times a week am I in conversation with somebody in the pause community? I'm like, let's take a pause. Um, Pause for the pause that we have to do in our pause world, just to really take a moment and sit down if possible, or wherever you are. If it happens while you're driving, maybe just make a point to like stop before you get out of the car. Once you've arrived at your location, get somewhere safe, feel your feet on the ground, put your hands on your heart. So if you want, we can do it together. If you want to think of something that's like that big ugly pimple of, I can't imagine you having any ugly pimples. You're so vibrant. But even anything. The horse was being a real jerk the other day.
You're so cute. You're so
Like
cute. Um,
anything you could, or maybe there's nothing. But when that moment comes up, feel your feet on the ground. And if
mm,
you're listening to this and you're not driving, you can do this with me right now.
mhm,
Place a hand on your heart, place another hand on top of that hand or next to it on the heart, and start to just do some nice breathing. Feel your feet connected to the earth. So whether they're on a yoga block or the floor, they are connected to the earth. And first thing I want you to notice is that beautiful, loving support of the earth. The earth always has your back through everything, through all the things that we think are so big. And if you haven't already, because some of us right away, we know what breathing pattern we want, I would recommend a few moments of a nice, mellow, nourishing breathwork pattern. So we're going to do one together, and it's so simple. It's inhale through the nose and exhale out the mouth. And as you breathe, I'm going to talk to you for a few moments. Let the breath be nice and gentle. I invite you to let this be a continuous breath in and out, not pausing at the top or bottom, but making it whatever speed, whatever size you want. Nice deep inhales and exhales, a more shallow inhale and exhale. And just start to notice as you're breathing, notice that awareness coming into the body. Maybe noticing the vibration of your heart. And starting to ask yourself, where is this thing that is bothering me, if there's something that's bothering me? Is it in a part of my body? Because sometimes there's a visceral feeling that it is, and sometimes there is not. Maybe it's a message that you're starting to hear as you continue to breathe. Maybe a part of you needs something. So I had a big insecurity about most recently, I mentioned earlier about home decorating. For me, there were little things that were coming up, and I said, what is it? What is it inside of me that thinks I'm supposed to be Martha Stewart, or I'm supposed to be this perfect decorator, or that's just something built in? What is it that feels like my space is inadequate? And what do I really want? And if it feels good to take your last little breath pattern here, so one more inhale and one more exhale, Now there's something I really love to do, and that's taking a nice deep breath in and holding it. So taking a nice deep breath in through the nose, letting the belly and the chest open. We want to be able to free our belly with these breaths and just pausing at the top, pausing the mind, letting the earth continue to hold you, permissioning your brain and the thoughts in it to just melt down into your heart, and then slowly exhaling. Yeah. Letting that smile come to your face. And maybe saying something to yourself of saying something to this part of yourself or to this problem, saying, I see you. We're not ashamed. What can we do here? What would be supportive? Can this be okay? Can it be okay for my one horse to just be a complete jerk sometimes? Can it be okay for me to just not be happy with my front room in my house and constantly compare it to somebody else's front room? Can it be okay? Can it be okay that I didn't travel this year and I keep seeing other people's trips? Can it be okay? And if you're doing this exercise, you can flutter your eyes open. Maybe those things I asked you can be journal prompts. But I find that when I am okay, okay doesn't mean we're settling. Okay does not mean we are settling. Okay means we are starting to put this in God's hands or universe's hands, and we're not shaming ourselves. We're
Mm.
not shaming ourselves. The more we resist something, if we just let it be okay, that is the way that we start to untangle a little bit from feeling this knot, feeling like this is just not getting better.
Mm. That was so, so good. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
I'll just share in brief my big pimple that I went into, just so you know.
Yeah.
Um, and I would say it's like not so much a big festering one, but one of those ones where you're like, it kind of is still there. Like it just isn't popping, but it's kind of still there, one of those.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I had this beautiful idea come through to run a horse story night where people would get up on the mic and tell a story about horses. And today was the day, Rebecca. It was going to be tonight, December 16th. And this idea like came through November 5th on the Beaver Moon. I was like, had all this energy about it. I was like, gotta do this thing. Started like pulling some other horse girls together. Started like, we're gonna do profit, nonprofit, like marketing schedule, started designing flyers, getting my kids on board, all these things. And I recognized there was so much pressure. And
Mm.
that most of it was on me because although people were excited, they like weren't necessarily able or willing or available to jump in the way I felt I needed people to jump in to like make this thing happen and rent this theater and like do all these things. And so it's funny because I put it aside and I was really sad to let it go. And I recognized, like, I feel the truth in my heart that it's still a good idea and that it will happen when it's supposed to. And it was really
Mm-hmm.
sad to let it go around, like, all I want for Christmas is a pony time.
I feel that.
But
Ah.
I also felt the deep pressure in my stomach of like, it's on me. I have to do it all, blah, blah, blah. And did I mention that I would be traveling for Women in Wealth in November and then traveling to Chicago? And that on the first day I was in Chicago, my youngest daughter would break her clavicle. And that on the second day I was in Chicago, my older daughter would come down with a terrible tooth infection that
Oh no, that's
required
a
us to
lot.
extend
Oh
our
no.
trip for like a tooth extraction. And that then there would be a huge snowstorm that would mean all flights were grounded anyway. And I would have missed like 2 weeks out of this like 6 week window. And that I've been full on mom mode, just supporting them in this like deep presence. And both
Mm.
of them have birthdays in December. Did I mention that too? So like the point is, to like feel the thing, go into it, recognize it, allow it to be December 16th today, and to have let that go and to welcome in this other lifetime of getting to interview you. And you're the third in 3 interviews today that I would not have done if I was doing some big event tonight. Like it wouldn't have happened. I would have been like, ah. So I just feel like the beauty of the practice and the work. And thank you so much just in my
Of
own
course.
body for the healing of taking me through that today. Like, thank you. And sharing your gifts with us. That was so awesome. Okay, people are going to want to find you. They're going to be like, how do I get more of this? Can you tell them how they find you now, please?
Absolutely, sure. So, my Instagram, which I'll give you for the show notes, is Rebecca Happy Breaths. So at Rebecca Happy Breaths. I learned the hard way that when we change our Instagram name, the search engine doesn't always carry over. So I have this thing of I love people to just search for me by name, but I'm probably keeping Rebecca Happy Breaths. So that will be in the show notes. My Facebook is my name, Rebecca Schlosser. I'm happy to connect with anybody on Facebook. I'm Generation X still. So I'm like still getting used to Instagram. I also have a Facebook group and I have a really juicy, fun little gift, which will be available the ebook to share in your show notes. And there will probably be an opportunity to come online and do some breath work with me in January, February, which I will also make sure if it's in time that it's in your show notes.
Awesome. And we will have that all in the show notes. So if you forgot or you want to double check spelling or any of those things, it's all in there. But if you're out walking the dog, you heard it here. We covered so much ground, Rebecca. Did we miss anything? Is there any last takeaway that's coming through you want to leave with our audience?
Hmm. Yeah. So I do want to follow up as we were talking about meaning that thing and your beautiful story about realizing how much had already been filled in your calendar and finding some peace with this.
Mm,
What's really, really beautiful, I feel, once we meet the thing, once we get that awareness, something on the outside shifts. And for
mm,
me, it was shifting because I was waking up every single morning and doing this breath work. I call it breath work in bed. Breath work in bed before breath work. There's all this like these old stories about being some Buddha sitting perfectly on a cushion. Breath work in bed is great for those mornings when you wake up at 5 a.m. Where's my midlife gals? Okay. When you wake up at 5:30 and you're like, why? Well, it's going to be dark for another 2 hours. What am I going to do? I don't want to get out of this warm bed. And that was what started the breath work in bed. And
mm,
that's one of the things I will share a little bit more about in my ebook. But I was doing all of this work. And as I was doing all of this work, that little thing that was kind of a pimple in my life was getting ready. The universe was getting ready to lighten it up a little bit, to sort of open it up a little bit, transform it a little bit so that now it's not that big pimply thing, but it's
mm,
something that I can work with and transform. So, what was interesting is I found out a few days before I was in the home goods store, I had a conversation with a friend. I'm glad that I'm telling you this on my podcast before I release it because your podcast, because I want to see if it lands. And my friend had expressed a little bit of insecurity about spending money on herself during the holidays. She's got 3 kids, understandable. And so she asked me, what do you think of this? And it got me thinking about my money stories. And what I realized, and it hit me like this big road sign, because I had this insecurity about not being a good decorator, it hit me that when it came to the category of decorating, I would buy a few things for one area of my house or for the kitchen, and maybe I'd spend like 100, 150, 200, not a king's ransom. But I would start to panic because all of a sudden now, instead of being present with the one thing I was doing, I would start to think about all the other things that needed fixing. As
mm,
I entered this little portal of being in the process of making something better, all of a sudden I would get overwhelmed by the fact that, oh my God, but this is just one little part of the big picture. So now my brain would think it's not just 150 or $200. No, it's going to be 300, 500, 800, 1,000. I would start to think about all this money that would have to be spent. But it wasn't that it was a money story, it was that it was a perfectionism story. I would somehow be obsessed with needing to correct something that was, quote, air quotes, such a big problem. And the reframe was, no, this isn't a big problem. You're decorating one little corner and it gets to be fun and you get to go to bed tonight knowing that that corner shines brighter than it did yesterday. And then the other things will come, and the other things will come, and the other things will come. And now it gets to go back to being $100 here, $100 there. And so what I thought was like a money spending story actually made me realize this is why I feel so stuck. I want things to look different. I have this story that I can't make it look different because I
Mm,
go into this freeze. I go into this like nervous system freeze response when I'm trying to do one little area of my house instead of realizing that it's brick by brick, right? It's step by
yeah.
step. So we start to notice those little triggers, those little things that show up, and we get to look deeper and say, what's really going on here when we are doing a lot of this work to feel into our body and feel into it. It brings wisdom,
Mm,
breathing and meditation and doing some trauma release, anger release, emotional release work. It's all getting the things out of our body and nervous system so we can feel safe and so that wisdom can drop in. Because that
mm.
really was a turning point for me in the last few weeks of going to the store and seeing, wow, this can be easy. This can be step by step. This doesn't have to be an existential crisis.
Mm. I love that. Oh my gosh, I love
Thank
that.
you.
And I love that story on
Yeah.
perfectionism and also
Yeah.
recognizing like, wait a second, I'm like trying to make my whole thing perfect and I
Yeah.
could just do this, right?
Yes. Yes. And then otherwise, nothing's going to get done because you're just going to be sitting in the story that you can't do it.
Yeah. One of my
Yes.
favorite, I'll share this one as we wrap up, but one of my favorite hacks is I love the before and after.
Mhm.
So, I'm formerly a weight loss coach and fitness coach and all the things. So, like, before and afters are a whole thing, but real transformation takes time. And you can have a real transformation in a moment where you go from
Mhm.
to oh, right? Like in that breath. Like literally you can have a transformation. And so one of my favorite things is like, okay, I can't fix my whole office in 5 minutes, but I can take a before and after of this drawer. And I can take five
Yes.
minutes to organize
I love
this
that.
drawer,
Yes.
just this drawer. And so I feel like, and I do this with, I'll walk into a room and there'll be laundry everywhere and like dishes and the whole thing, you know what I mean? Dog toys, like it's everywhere. And I'll take a picture and I will turn on a podcast that's 10 minutes. And for 10 minutes, I will just do the thing. I will do the thing and then I will take the after photo and be like, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. No, it's not perfect. Progress though. Looks better.
Progress. Progress. Yes. Being able to track how things are different moment by moment, giving ourselves that reward, that pat on the back. And I love the idea of taking a micro before and after, like this drawer or this corner. That's beautiful. I love that.
Totally. Breath by breath, baby. Breath by
Breath
breath.
by breath.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that last mic drop story. If you guys loved it, please subscribe, follow, leave us a review. You can find Rebecca in the show notes. You can find her in New Mexico. You can find her in your heart. Go find her virtually. And thank you so much for sharing with us. Hats off to you and your wisdom. You have just been such a delight. And thank you so much for sharing your gifts today.
Oh, thank you. The feeling is so mutual. You are just a bombshell. Thank you. Oh,
Until we meet again, my friends, take good
mwah.
care and keep breathing.